Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're going to be discussing about orchid backbulbs, and also we will repot my Dendrobium Enobi. How many of you remember this dendrobium? It has been on my wish list for a long time, and last year one of you guys sent it to me. Problem is, it was mush. It spent a lot of time in transport, and the leaves and pseudobulbs, they all completely turned to mush, and this is all that I have left of him. These are very tiny backbulbs. Luckily enough, I managed to save him. We're gonna repot him today, give him a new pot. So I thought to take you along, talk a little bit about the backbulb situation, what it is, how you can actually propagate or multiply orchids through backbulbs, and also what you should expect. So first let's start with that, and then we'll work on the Enobi. So as I was saying in yesterday's Q&A, sympodial orchids create structures that we call canes or pseudobulbs that are connected through a rhizome. And pretty much this is how they grow. Rather than creating new leaves and new growth in height, they create it on a horizontal level. So each pseudobulb is part of the very same orchid. It is not a baby plant. So whenever we see a new pseudobulb forming on our orchid, we should never cut it, even if it starts to produce roots, because chances are it will not make it. However, though, the older pseudobulbs, they can actually be propagated. Most common than not, we propagate divisions, meaning a section of the rhizome which contains at least 3 pseudobulbs. It can contain 2, 4, 5. The more the better actually, because they store nutrients and energy. So the more pseudobulbs we have, the more energy we'll have for the plant to start growing again at a fast or at least normal pace. How does the orchid do this? Well, at the base of every cane or pseudobulb, we have growing eyes. Let me get you in closer. So as you can see in this example, new growth always starts from the base. At the base of each cane, there are growth nodes or growth eyes, which remain dormant until it is time to develop. They are very tiny and sometimes we cannot see them, but sometimes we actually can. So in this case, this cane has another growth eye right here where you see it being a little inflated, this little bump. That's a growing eye. It is protected by the sheaths, or actually hidden by the sheaths, so we cannot see it, but it's there. If this orchid would decide to start growing this eye, it would transform into a new growth, such as the one in the back. Typically, sympodial orchids produce 1 or 2 new growths per year, but of course, depending on the species, they can produce more, and they develop from these eyes. Dendrobium orchids and other orchids have multiple growth points or eyes along the cane, while others, such as Cattleyas, they only have them at the base. Each orchid can have 2 to 4 available growing eyes. And as I was saying, typically they only develop 1 or 2. And that means that in some cases, the older growths still have available eyes, which are dormant. They never developed, but they have the possibility to develop. So how do we make them start growing? Well, amongst other more not natural things, we can actually make divisions. When an orchid feels that the rhizome has been broken, snapped, or cut at some of its points, the divisions created will start to grow, both of them, or all 3 of them, depending how many divisions we made. It is the nature of an orchid to grow. So at that point, chemical processes start to happen within the orchid, resulting in pushing growth hormones to these eyes and waking them up, making them grow. Every cane has the possibility to grow a new growth if it has available eyes. And as I was saying, divisions are typically multiple pseudobulbs per division, just to make sure we have enough energy for this eye to properly grow. However, though, there is another technique based on the theory that I just told you, the technique of propagating orchids through backbulbs. And a backbulb is, as it sounds, a bulb from the back, a pseudobulb actually, that is very, very old, and we are trying to propagate only one of them. So let's say, in my case, if I wanted to propagate this orchid through a backbulb, I would cut, or separate actually this bulb, I would cut the rhizome right here, not cut the pseudobulb, just the rhizome, and then I would try to place this orchid on a bed of sphagnum moss, damp sphagnum moss, and wait. And and eventually, if it has available eyes, it will create new growth. And that is actually a pretty easy and common way of propagating some orchids. Maybe some orchids that are pretty rare or you want to sell them. The downside of backbulb propagation is that it is very, very slow. Unlike propagating a whole division, which has more energy to grow due to the number of canes, one cane will not have the same amount of energy. So the new growths in 100% of the cases will be very small. There are a few exceptions. Catasetum orchids are an exception, maybe some other orchids as well, but very few. For the vast majority of sympodials, meaning oncidiums, cattleyas, Miltonia and Miltoniopsis, brassias, dendrobiums of any sort, and other very popular sympodials, backbulb propagation takes a while. The new growth will be very, very tiny, and then as new growths are produced, each one will be bigger and bigger because new growths produce new roots as well that hydrate the orchid. So bottom line, backbulb propagation refers to one single bulb that is old. It might not be this one, it might be this one. Both of them can be backbulbs. That takes a lot of time because the quantity of energy is very, very low. On the market, and at least here in Europe, specifically on eBay, there are people who sell backbulbs, but they don't really tell us they're backbulbs. They tell us it's a mature orchid, and indeed, the backbulb can come from a mature orchid, but it doesn't mean it's gonna bloom within the year because, as I was saying, the growths will be very tiny. So beware of that. If you ever see the term backbulb, you know what it means now. If you want to buy it, buy it. Just expect very slow growth and 2 years, I don't know, maybe 3 years until you might see blooms on your orchid, depending on your orchid. You will not see blooms right away, most probably. So those are the backbulbs. You can try it out. If you ever discard one of the bulbs of your orchid, try it out. The way to propagate them is pretty easy. My preferred method is to just pluck it in a bed of sphagnum moss, and you have on the screen an example right now. This is how I like to encourage orchids to root, and of course a backbulb needs to create a new pseudobulb, a new growth which will root. It works very well and it's pretty hassle-free, so there you have it. Now that we know what backbulbs are, we can use this information not only to propagate orchids, but to save them. And that is exactly what I did with my dendrobium. So let's go back to him and see what to do. So as I was saying, with my Dendrobium Enobi, which is one of my absolute favorite dendrobiums, I always wanted it, I had some issues after I received it. Most of its pseudobulbs, which were a lot bigger than this, were mush. They were lost. I couldn't do anything about it. All I could save were the backbulbs, which are these ones. I saved 2 backbulbs. This is one of them, and there is actually another one underneath it, the second one. With dendrobiums, the growth points or nodes are not only situated at the base, but throughout the cane's length. So what I did with these backbulbs is again place them in a pretty high humidity environment and waited to see what happened. And you'll see some footage on the screen. I'll check my archive and share it with you. I'll link you down below to the videos as well, so you see the evolution and you see how it looked like. At some point, new buds started to swell at those growth points. The problem was they were not the base points. I'm not sure if there were any available eyes at the base, but further up on the cane, apparently there were. So this orchid actually started to grow those new eyes, and because they were further up, I placed the backbulbs horizontally rather than vertically, just so the roots get to the medium faster. If I would have placed it vertically, the roots would have had to travel down the cane and then find the medium and hydrate the orchid, not what I wanted. So that's why my orchid looks like this today. These are the backbulbs, and ever since then it produced very tiny growth. You can see it here. Look how tiny these pseudobulbs were. But these tiny pseudobulbs produced roots, they hydrated the orchid, and behold, today we are growing these new growths, which already look a lot bigger. Now this is not a very big orchid, so that's okay, I'm in luck, but it's certainly not this tiny. What I want to do today is actually get rid of these pseudobulbs and pretty much give a new life to this orchid in a new pot. And I can actually do that because these old pseudobulbs, They don't produce roots anymore, they were just support here. And even though they do store some nutrients, I do have pseudobulbs right now that store nutrients and water, and also I have a lot of roots. Since my orchid is in semi-hydroponics, in organic medium, I don't need to detach any of this medium. All I need to do is just pluck it out, cut these out, and put it in a new pot. So let's see how to do that. It's gonna get a little loud. There we have it. This is my little orchid. And as I was saying, I'm not going to remove this medium from the root system. I'm going to let it as it is. I do want to bury the orchid a little more in the medium. As you can see, the roots need to travel a little bit, so that's okay. So I'm gonna go sterilize my cutting pruners and I'll be right back. So some people like to actually twist the canes and they can come right off, but I don't want to damage anything from here. I would much rather damage this old back bulb than the new growths. So that's why I'm going to just cut it, and then I'm going to take a closer look and see if I can actually detach parts of it. But for now, I don't care about this. I care about these. So, okay, it's not going to be very, very easy. Oh, there we have it. This is one side of the orchid coming off, but we have another one connected here. It's harder to do when I cannot get actually closer to the orchid. Okay, I think we're done. So you can see these were the two back bulbs. So incredibly tiny. But yeah, they saved my orchid. Okay, so I think we can actually pinch this off. Okay. And I think this made it look a little tidier. There we have it. You can see there isn't much left of the old pseudobulb, and we're going to do the same for the other division. Oh, P.S. Yes, I have two divisions here because they were created on two separate bulbs. So we don't have a very big open wound here, and this is my second division. I will be potting both of these orchids in the very same pot because I don't know which of them is healthier and in better condition. And of course, I will be potting them in semi-hydroponics. Now, I could actually reuse the medium, and usually that's what I do, but they were potted in a transparent pot, and look at this. The leca is full of algae. I need to completely wash it. I don't want to reuse it because now all of those algae which received light will not receive so much light anymore, and some of them will die. That means build up in my pot. So I will be using just a few tiny pieces that are attached to the roots and they fell here, which don't have algae on them, but then I will switch to brand new leca just to avoid a total mess in my pot. But usually I would reuse the leca, and don't worry, this one will get reused. I just need to clean it first. And here is my little orchid repotted. Now, if I really wanted to, I could have left those back bulbs. Really, they didn't hurt anything. They actually helped the orchid, but now the amount of help they actually provide is not all that big because the orchid has some pseudobulbs, has roots of its own, so it's not that crucial that we kept them. Also, I just wanted to repot the orchid in a totally different pot and different medium, get it out of that algae mess. Sometimes algae can deposit on roots as well. I personally don't find it to be very healthy for the roots, but it happens. It's not gonna kill them. I just believe it's not okay. So bottom line, I just wanted to get it out of the pot, cut away the older pseudobulbs which didn't look all that great anymore, and start it on its own journey. But if you want to keep the older pseudobulbs, there's no reason to cut them really, other than aesthetics and just placing the orchid in a different pot. So there we have it. This is my Dendrobium Enobi. For those of you who remember, I did have it and I did wanted it for a lot of time. Here he is, he's still alive. I just had to wait. Whenever you propagate something through backbulbs, you have a lot of weight in front of you with most orchids. Again, with catasetums, I heard you really don't have to wait. The catasetums respond very well to backbulb propagation. Other orchids, though, not so well. And not all backbulbs will have available eyes. Not all backbulbs will have enough energy. And, you know, it's not a sure thing. But if you think you're gonna have some fun by saving the discarded pseudobulbs, there we have it. You can totally try to propagate some podial orchids. So alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting, and you know the drill. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular, daily actually, orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, little repots such as this one. And if you'd like YouTube to remind you whenever I upload a video, just turn on all notifications for my channel. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye!